All right. Welcome to the Week 11 preview edition of the Lewis and Laraib podcast. My name is Lewis, and my beautiful co-host next to me is Laraib. We're going to dive into every single game of Week 11. We are filming this on a Thursday night, right before the Thursday night game, Seahawks-Cardinals. If you want to see what we said about that game, go to our previous episode where we broke that game down. We both picked the Seahawks in that matchup, but maybe see more in depth what we were exactly talking about. But let's not really waste any time. NBA draft was last night. That was also insane. Like we said in previous episodes, we're going to start ingratiating NBA into more and more as we get closer to the start of the NBA season. But at the moment, we have all Week 11 games ready to go. So without further ado, Laraib, let's get right into it.
Yep, and let's start off with the first game of the 12 o'clock schedule. We have the 3-5-1 Philadelphia Eagles going to Cleveland, Ohio to play the Browns, who are at 6-3 currently. The Browns in this game favored by -3. Lewis, why don't you go ahead and start us off with this one?
Sure thing. So the biggest thing I want to see is Nick Chubb coming back from injury. We saw how important he is to this team's rushing attack. Kareem Hunt's nice, but when you have that 1-2 punch, let them, feed off of one another and have the ability. Because as much as I love Kareem Hunt as a talent, he's more of a receiving back, and he can be an every down back. But week to week, as as your primary ball carrier, you'd rather have a Nick Chubb to take those 1st and 10 downs, 2nd and long, to really get that defense going, and then you start hitting the seams, going full speed. So I really love what the what the Nick Chubb addition does for this Cleveland offense. And just don't put the ball in harm's way for Baker Mayfield. And this is a defense you can expose with your running game. I see what the Vikings have been doing the past few weeks, and I've really marveled at it. Even against good run defenses, just do enough, keep the running game going every single play. No matter how, just get it going. And then if you need to, get the ball downfield to your talented receivers. You're going to have at least 7 defenders in the box at all times to combat this potent run game. Get those receivers, get Jarvis Landry, and some of the other, younger guys. Rashad Higgins has come on in the absence of Odell Beckham Jr. and get these guys out in space. I would also like Stefanski to start working Nick Chubb more in the screen game because I feel like he can be very deadly in the passing attack as well.
Yeah, and especially when you're going against the Eagles defense, which last week made Alfred Morris, Daniel Jones, and Wayne Gallman all look like Pro Bowl type of players. I mean, there's nothing that's going to hold back this Cleveland offense. And then the other side of the ball, we have the Philadelphia Eagles offense led by Carson Wentz, and he's been struggling all season long. And I expect that to continue once again this week, especially against Defensive Player of the Year hopeful Myles Garrett. But we've seen this Browns defense has been picked apart, a little bit. We saw Derek Carr a couple of weeks ago. He did some nice work against his Browns defense. So it definitely can be exposed, but I just have too many questions about this Philadelphia Eagles offense. I know you got back Alshon Jeffrey last week. You got back Miles Sanders last week. The offense was starting to get really healthy, and then they just come out and they only put up 17 points up against, Giants team or defense, which is really good. But, I mean, still, it's a divisional game, and you lose by 10 points, and you just get completely obliterated. So, I mean, I have to go with the Browns in this game just because can I really trust Carson Wentz in this game? He's going to have a lot of pressure in his face with that Browns front 7 led by Ogunjobi and Myles Garrett. So give me the Browns in this one. I think it's going to be, the Browns, I think they can win this game pretty easily just if they just run the ball against his Philadelphia defense. So give me the Browns 27, Philadelphia 23.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, I've been really impressed with this Cleveland defense, especially last week, holding the Texans to only 7 points. I know the Texans haven't been great this year, but Deshaun Watson has been on a tear recently, and how they were able to contain him and hold him in the pocket. I think they're going to do the same thing, taking advantage of a depleted Eagles offensive line, which has been battling injuries all season. And if they can get to Carson Wentz and really make him work in that pocket to those receivers, it's going to be a very tough day for the Eagles. So I agree. I feel like the game's going to be low scoring. So give me Browns 20, Eagles 16 in this one. This is getting to a point in the season, Laraib, where the Browns are 6-3, but they're out of the playoffs at the moment. So they need to start getting up some of these wins, these easier games. And if they lose one of these games coming up for them, one of the easier ones, it's really going to hurt them in the long run. So the importance of this week for this game for the Browns is immeasurable, and they need to come out and take this game.
Yeah, most definitely. But now let's move on to another game in the 12 o'clock schedule. We have the Atlanta Falcons at 3-6 playing the New Orleans Saints right at 7-2. It is a home game for the Saints. New Orleans -4 in this game. Lewis, as a resident Saints fan, why don't you start us off with this one?
So the big question coming into this week for the New Orleans Saints is who will be the starter at quarterback? Now, we saw when Drew Brees left the game against the 49ers last week that Jameis Winston came in as the starter for the second half. And although he didn't look great, it reminded me of a game last year in which Drew Brees got injured against the Los Angeles Rams on the road. And Teddy Bridgewater had to come in, and he looked awful against the Rams. I believe this week with practice under Sean Payton, getting those reps in, getting more and more acclimated with the first-string offensive players and the offensive line, because communication was an issue last week for Jameis Winston. They had to use a lot of timeouts. There were a few false starts. It was sloppy in that second half. But I think the communication is a lot crisper this week. And just give the ball to your playmakers. You don't have to do too much, Jameis Winston. There's a great complement of players who can do a lot of the work for you. You don't have to push the ball down the field, throw it into tight windows. Get the ball into Alvin Kamara, Michael Thomas, Deontay Harris, Taysom Hill. Get the ball into their hands in space, and they'll do a lot of the work. You see what Drew Brees is so good at, and putting his players in positions to succeed. Well, let's see if Sean Payton can develop a game plan for Jameis Winston, not only to do that, and you can utilize his strengths as a deep ball thrower and precision passer down the field, which we've seen him be very effective at in the past few seasons. But the biggest concern with Jameis, as we all know, is the turnovers. Can he limit the turnovers against a poor Falcons defense at home, in which I think he can? So I'm going to give the Saints the edge, although the big thing for me, how much are we going to see Taysom Hill in this game? Because the offense is very unpredictable. Taysom Hill in the game, I still think he's a very good quarterback. He's such a powerful runner, and you have to respect him whenever he's on the field, wherever he is on the field. So what are the Falcons going to do, and what are the Saints going to do? Because now Taysom Hill isn't your third-string quarterback. He's your second-string quarterback. So if Jameis gets injured, he's your guy. So is he going to play more? Is he going to play less special teams? Is he going to play less receiver and tight end? Who knows? We'll see what Sean Payton can come up with. But if there's one offensive mind in the league I do not count out, that is Sean Payton.
Yep, for sure. And then we flip it on to the other side of the Atlanta Falcons coming off a bye this week. And we know what that offense can be and what it can't be. You have Matt Ryan, future Hall of Famer, Julio Jones, one of the best receivers in the game, Calvin Ridley, breakout season for him, Todd Gurley, we know he's a touchdown machine, and they can come out firing on all cylinders and, put up, 30, 40 points in any given week. But then on the next week, everything's off. Matt Ryan's overthrowing players. Todd Gurley, he's going for 1.5 yards per carry. So, it really depends on what type of Falcons team, comes out on Sunday. And that defense, definitely one of the worst in the NFL, like you were saying earlier. So I definitely have to give the Saints the edge in this game, just like you're saying, because the Falcons, I know it's going to be a divisional game. Both teams are going to be fired up for this one. We know how much they hate each other. But Matt Ryan, I can trust him sometimes. Sometimes I just can't. And that defense is really what's going to be the problem in this game. If they can get some turnovers and some takeaways from Jameis, they might have a good chance to win this game. But I believe, with Sean Payton, Jameis Winston, he's going to get his mind right. We know he got the LASIK eye surgery done over the season. So he's going to be seeing the field just a little bit more clear. So give me the Saints in this one. I think it's going to be I'm going to say it's going to be a little bit of a closer game and a little less scoring just because I know that Saints defense has been on his tear the past couple of weeks, and Jameis Winston is his first game starting. So give me the Saints in this one, 24-21.
Yeah, big thing for me in this game will be the turnover battle. Now, we understand Jameis's issues with turnover the past few years, or ever since he's really been a starter in this league. But Matt Ryan against the Saints the past few games has turned the ball over at least 2 times in his last 3 games. So that's something to look out for. And I see the Saints doing a similar defensive game plan as they did for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers game is you get to Matt Ryan with your front 4, with that offensive line that is not very good. Cam Jordan is an absolute Matt Ryan killer and has been his entire career. And, Marshawn Lattimore is questionable for this game, but I think he will play. And he's going to be huge at taking away a lot of the things that Julio Jones likes to do. And those matchups over the past few years have been very good for Marshawn Lattimore against the Falcons. So look for him to be one-on-one on Julio for most of the day. And if you can get to Matt Ryan with your front four, force him into some tough passes, force him into mistakes. This will be a very easy game for the Saints, but it's a divisional game. I'm going to have it close, even though I would, maybe if Jameis can pull some magic out, it could be a big win for the Saints. So I'm going to go like similar to you. I'm going to go 28-20. Big thing in this game, I think Falcons come back a little bit late, but they just really never have control of the game.
Yep. But let's move on to another game on the 12 o'clock schedule. We have the Cincinnati Bengals at 2-6-1 playing the Washington football team at 2-7 Washington in this game, -1.5. So I'll start us off with this Washington football team. We know the things that happened during the offseason, the whole name change and, you bring in Ron Rivera and then he got his cancer and everything was looking downhill. And then week 1, they come out firing on all cylinders and they beat the Eagles team and everyone's really high on them. But ever since then, they've only won one game. And they kind of remind me of another team in the NFC, the Carolina Panthers. Great coaching staff, great pieces on the team, but they can just never come out and win those tight games. We saw a terrible loss last week against the Detroit Lions. It was a close game, and they came back late in it, but their defense just couldn't hold up and stop Matt Stafford in the last one and, the 1-minute drill. So, it's been a disappointing season for them, but they definitely have a lot of bright spots. But that defense or that offense going against the Bengals defense, I think they might have some chances. Alex Smith had a great game last week, over 300 passing yards, no turnovers in that game. So that was good for him. And he's, he might be able to do the same once again against the Bengals. But I think that defense is going to have a hard time stopping Joe Burrow. But how about you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, it was a disappointing week last week for the Cincinnati Bengals as, coming off a bye week, hosting the Pittsburgh Steelers. This Pittsburgh Steelers were undefeated. You would think they would come out with a better fight than they did, losing 36-10 to the undefeated Steelers. I mean, in retrospect, that's not a terrible loss because of how good the Steelers have been all season, but you need to have a bit more effort than what you had. And this is a locker room full of guys, which I really feel for Joe Burrow because a lot of the older guys who were on a lot of those playoff teams really just want out. They really don't want a part of what's, coming into Cincinnati at the moment, even though I think Cincinnati has a bright future. A lot of these older guys, I think, need to be let go in this offseason. Total revamp of the defense, starting with guys like Geno Atkins. They already got rid of Carlos Dunlap. A.J. Green needs to go, and some of these other guys who are just, I think they're kind of holding the team back. And this team just needs to go new. They need to go fresh, bring new faces in. And in this game against the Washington football team, it's imperative that you can stop a lot of these dominant pass rushers for the Washington football team. We saw I questioned whether or not the Lions could do it last week. They did a good enough job to let those receivers get open down the field and get off to that early lead. So Bengals, you need to be in a situation in which you are not coming back from a deficit toward those pass rushers to just key in on Joe Burrow, where the biggest weakness of this offense is that offensive line. Get the running game going. Giovanni Bernard has been playing very well the past few weeks. It sounds like it feels like him and Joe Burrow have really had a connection the past few weeks. And then Joe Mixon, get him involved as well. And I think you can have a pretty good game plan. So I am going with the Bengals in this matchup against the Washington football team. I know it's on the road, but this team is more talented than the football team, especially offensively. I know Alex Smith had a good week last week, but a lot of it was garbage time trying to come back. So give me the Bengals. I'm going to go very tight game. I'm going to go 28-24. Late Joe Burrow touchdown seals the deal.
Yeah, I mean, this is essentially a pick-em game. You really don't know which team is going to come out and, play their best on any given Sunday. But especially for this game, I want to go with, the sexy pick and Joe Burrow and that offense. But give me Alex Smith, the old veteran, at home. This Washington football team, they're dying for a win right now. I can tell you that much. I mean, a terrible loss last week against the Lions is really going to give them motivation this week. And Chase Young, I expect to see him in the backfield a whole bunch on Sunday against Joe Burrow and that terrible offensive line. So give me Washington in this one. I'm going to go a little bit less scoring than you, or, I'll go same scoring, but flip the teams 28-24, give me Washington. They let me down a whole bunch this season, and I'm just going to keep on picking them.
Hey, you do you. This might be the game that decides the week, kind of like how it was last week, but it was one of the few. But we are going to move on to our next game of the week. We have the Detroit Lions traveling to Carolina to face the Panthers in a game where both the quarterbacks are questionable to play. Teddy Bridgewater had a knee injury against the Buccaneers last week, and Matt Stafford's been dealing with a bunch of injuries recently. I don't think Teddy Bridgewater is going to play. Do not quote me on that. If you could look that up for me, that'd be beautiful.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, that's the big thing for this game. No Christian McCaffrey. He has been declared out. And if you were missing Teddy Bridgewater, that's going to be absolutely huge for this young, up-and-coming Carolina offense, which, really it seemed like they started to find their rhythm when they were 3-3, starting to find their way. But they're losers of 4 straight games, and their defense has been kind of falling apart. They just cannot get to the quarterback to save their lives. A lot of those young, up-and-coming defensive players, it seems like they kind of hit a wall, that rookie wall halfway through the season, which is understandable. I'm not faulting any of them for it, especially the defensive linemen, this weird COVID year. I think they're going to be a lot better team next year, but this year they face some tougher opponents, some veteran guys, and they're starting to feel that. And so in this game, Matt Stafford, I believe, will play in this one, so he will be able to use the full complement of weapons. Marvin Jones has been really coming on for this Detroit Lions offense in the past few weeks as a really good receiver for them. The first few weeks he was kind of absent, and Danny Amendola as well has been a good slot receiver for Matt Stafford to rely on. So I like the Lions in this matchup on the road.
Yeah, so Teddy Bridgewater is most likely going to miss this game with the MCL sprain, so it's either going to be PJ Walker. Yeah, PJ Walker or Will Grier. Either one of those two will most likely be making the start. But for that exact reason, I think this is going to be more of a Detroit scheme. Matt Stafford, he does have a partial tear in his throwing hand thumb, but I believe he will most likely play in this game. And I think that's what it's going to come down to. The inexperienced quarterback for the Carolina Panthers really is just what's going to cost them the game against the Lions. I know their defense really isn't that great, and they gave up a lot of yards to Alex Smith and a lot of garbage time points last week. It almost cost them the game. But when you're going up against PJ Walker or Will Grier, who haven't ever started, or Will Grier started 2 games last year for the Panthers, but he didn't look too good. So for that reason, give me the Lions in this one. Like you were saying, DeAndre Swift had a great game against the Washington front seven last week, and for the Panthers, no Teddy Bridgewater, no Christian McCaffrey. So give me the Lions. Lions 26, Panthers 20.
All right, that sounds about right for me as well. I'm going to go with a similar score. I'm going to go Lions 28 to Panthers 23. It's going to come down to the quarterbacks at the end, and I think Matt Stafford will get it done in this game. Both these teams sort of the mediocre stage in the league, so not facing too much time on this one. But we're going to move on to our next game of the week. We have the Pittsburgh Steelers traveling down to Jacksonville to face the Jaguars. In a game where the Jaguars really gave some scare into the Packers last week, traveling to Lambeau and only losing by 4 in a game that, there were points in which they really could have put a stranglehold on that game, but Jake Luton just could not get it done in the end. Pittsburgh is favored by 10.5 in this game. I think, regardless of how close the game may or may not be, the Steelers are going to have this one in the bag to go towards 10-0, the best record they've ever had through 10 games of a season in Steelers' fabled history for the franchise. And in terms of matchup, there's not really much to say here. I believe the defensive front for the Steelers is much better than that of the Packers. That's why I projected that game to be a lot closer last week between the Jaguars and the Packers. But the Steelers' defensive front, which has been tenacious all season, is going to limit James Robinson and what he's been doing his spectacular rookie season. And Jake Luton is not going to have a fun time in that pocket against the Steelers. So give me the Steelers an easy matchup advantage in this one. They might do a little bit on offense in terms of the Jaguars because they really have some good playmakers, but they cannot do much against this steel wall.
Yeah, and on the other side of the other side of the ball, we have the Steelers offense with Big Ben, Juju Smith-Schuster, Claypool, Deontay Johnson, and James Conner. I think that the Jaguars defense is just going to have their hands full. Last week you go against Green Bay Packers, and they have a great offense too, led by Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, MVS, and Aaron Jones. But, it's going to be a whole different team you're going against this week because you have playmakers all across the board. I know Aaron Rodgers struggled a little bit in that game, but I don't think it's going to be the same for, Big Ben in this one. Now, this could be a trap game for the Steelers. Next week, they have a very big game against the Ravens on Thanksgiving. So maybe, they just start looking ahead too much and the Jaguars just come out of nowhere. But Mike Tomlin, one of the better coaches in the league, he's definitely going to look at Green Bay struggles from last week and make sure that his team doesn't commit the same ones this week. So all that being said, give me the Steelers in this one. Not much to say about it. Give me the Pittsburgh Steelers, 34, Jaguars, 13.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a similar score as you, Laraib. There is not much to say about this matchup. But, yeah, there is concern about a trap game and the Steelers, playing down to their competition. So I'm going to have a little bit of a tighter score. I'm going to go Steelers 27, Jaguars 17. Still going to cover the spread. But we're going to move on now to our next matchup of the week. We have the Tennessee Titans at 6-3 traveling to Baltimore at 6-3. Surprisingly, both teams who were leading their divisions 2 weeks ago now are in the wild card positions in the AFC, making that division or making that conference look a whole lot different. This game is huge for both teams because with a loss in this game, both these teams with wins by the Browns and the Colts this weekend, they could be out of the playoffs at the moment. So this is huge for both these teams to get a win this week. So I'll go first into the Tennessee Titans and what they need to do to beat the Ravens. And, this Ravens defense, which has been tenacious all season, it just seems like they lose discipline at moments in the game. And I understand that game against the Patriots where it was, super windy, rain coming down everywhere, really getting to the players. And at times you just, that Patriots team, they're disciplined they're going to be disciplined every single snap. And it seemed like there was these certain plays, like a Rex Burkhead wheel route that you don't think that Cam Newton would find. But if he's wide open in the end zone, any good quarterback, any NFL quarterback is going to find that guy. And they just lose focus in moments like this. And, their defense, it seems like they have a new COVID case every week or so. So they're struggling with that. And, they really need to find themselves in terms of a defense, get together because they have the talent on all three levels, like we've talked about, to get to quarterbacks. And in this game, you understand what you're going up against, and that is King Henry on the other side of the ball. Stop the run, let Ryan Tannehill beat you, and this is a matchup you should be able to take advantage of, and a matchup from last year's playoff that you should remember very well after the Titans came into Baltimore and handed it to you last year. So, Ravens, I need you to come out with fire, with focus, and everything you can because this is not an easy matchup for your defense.
Yeah, and then on the other side, you left me to hype up Lamar Jackson for this one, didn't you? But this is a prime game for him. A Titans defense, which we saw a couple weeks ago, absolutely get lit up by Joe Burrow. And then last Thursday night, we saw them get lit up by the dried up rivers up in Indianapolis. So Lamar Jackson, this is a game for you right here, buddy. You want to prove yourself this year. The running game has been bad this year. The playmaking has been bad this year. Your offensive line has been beat up. But when you're going against a Titans team, or Titans defense just overall hasn't been able to get pressure on the quarterback, hasn't been able to stop the tight ends. I mean, this is a perfect matchup for them, but I could see it just the other way, right? You're talking about the defense, which sometimes just gets complacent, an offense that tries to be too flashy, and then you let Derrick Henry control the clock on the other side, and they just milk the game out. But this is, both teams, terrible losses last year. Just like you're saying, this is a huge game for both teams. They're at the top of their division, or at least the Tennessee Titans were, and the Baltimore Ravens are still trying to get to the top of their division. So give me Baltimore in this one just because Lamar Jackson, this is a perfect opportunity for him right here to come out and get this win for his team. So give me the Baltimore Ravens in this one. I think it's going to be – give me Ravens 28, Titans 24.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you, Laraib. I just think this year they understand what's going to be at stake for this game, and the defense is going to come out firing. And what gives me the most pause for the Tennessee Titans team, as contrast from last year's team that beat the Ravens at home in the playoffs, is the defense. Like you said, I don't think they're going to be able to stop the running game. Getting Mark Ingram back last week was huge. They just need to make sure they're able to work all three of their running backs, get them all going. And, both these teams work well with the lead. And it's going to be I think it's going to be a very low-scoring game because of how, Lamar has problems and Ryan Tannehill, this defense. But so give me 17-14 Ravens pull this one out. I know it doesn't seem like a defensive struggle, but something is just telling me this game is going to be extremely physical, a lot of penalties. Both these teams are going to be going at it in this ball game.
Yep, for sure. But let's move on to the last game of the 12 o'clock schedule. We have the 4-5 Patriots visiting the Houston Texans at 2-7. New England in this game -2. And you know what? Let's start off with this New England Patriots team. Back-to-back primetime victories for this team. And you know what? Just like that, they're back in the playoff conversation in the AFC. I know the Dolphins and the Bills are pulling away a little bit, but the Patriots, they can make a little bit of a run here. And there's – well, you're just saying no? You don't believe in them? Bill Belichick, he's trying to prove that it wasn't Tom Brady. I mean, Cam Newton, he had a terrific game last week. Once again, looking like his former self, like he was earlier in the season. We saw Damien Harris and Rex Burkhead just run all over that Baltimore defense. And this week, guess what? They're facing the worst run defense in the NFL. So look for Cam Newton, right, or Damien Harris, along with Rex Burkhead, Sony Michel, if he comes back off the IR, to run all over this Texans defense, which we saw last week. Nick Chubb coming back almost, over 100 rushing yards, almost 2 touchdowns if he didn't go out of bounds on that last play. So, I mean, this Patriots team looking like they might be able to make another run for the playoffs this season.
2 primetime wins in a row. You are absolutely correct, Laraib. We're going to give them credit where credit is due. But I'm going to absolutely destroy that credit. You barely beat a Jets team on a Monday night in which you should have blown them out of the water if you try to say you're a potential playoff team. And then you need an absolute rainstorm or hurricane to come through New England. And yes, you beat a good Ravens team, but at 4-5, you have tougher games down the schedule. I mean, you're probably going to win this game against Houston. We're going to pick this game. But, you'll be able to run the ball on them. You have the Cardinals, the Chargers, the Rams, Dolphins, Buffalo as your next 5 games. Unless you finish the season undefeated, you're not making the playoffs in the AFC, in my opinion. And it doesn't seem like they have the tools to really get that done. So, yes, they're going to beat Houston. They're going to move back to 500. They'll put some respect on Bill Belichick's name when he finishes the season 8-8. But 8-8 will not get you into the playoffs in the AFC, given the climate of all the other teams who are trying to vie for that 7th playoff spot. Now, I understand I'm playing the devil's game right now, betting against Bill Belichick, but it just seems like this season is different. Obviously, the quarterback change and the whole COVID scare, the injuries on the defensive end. One player, though, I want to give major respect to, J.C. Jackson, the corner, second year out of Vanderbilt, I believe. He's been playing out of his mind this season alongside Stephon Gilmore. And I understand quarterbacks are not trying to throw to Stephon Gilmore because he's garnered that respect as a lockdown cornerback. But now they're throwing to J.C. Jackson. 7 interceptions on the season for him, leads the entire NFL by far. And he's making a case for himself for Defensive Player of the Year. So, Patriots fans, if you don't make the playoffs, you'll have that to look forward to. So, the rich get richer in New England. I'm not here to just, rain on your parade like you did the Ravens on Sunday night. But there's a lot to look forward to here. I'm going to pick the Patriots to win this game 24-13 because of the strength of this defense and the strength of the running game, as you mentioned, Laraib. But like I said, not much more to talk about. And a team we won't be talking about come playoff time will be the New England Patriots.
Well, in this game, I'm not picking the New England Patriots. I'm picking the Houston Texans. The New England Patriots have the 3rd worst DVOA pass defense. And you know what? Deshaun Watson, you talked about it a little bit earlier, 6th highest rated passer rating in the NFL right now. So I think Deshaun Watson, he's going to light up this Patriots defense, unlike Lamar Jackson was able to on Sunday Night Football. And that's why – and you know what? The Patriots are 1-3 on the road this year, and that one win on the road was against the Jets team, which they almost lost to. So for all those reasons, give me the Texans in this one. Texans 27, Patriots 24.
That's a good stat you throw out there. But the news for you, the Houston Texans are 2-7, and they only have 2 wins this year against the Jacksonville Jaguars. So Let's see if they can beat a team besides Jacksonville this season, and then we can talk. But you want to lead us into our next game?
Yeah, so kicking off the 3 o'clock schedule, we have the Dolphins, playoff hopefuls at 6-3 against the Broncos at 3-6. Dolphins in this game are -3.5. But I will start us off with the Miami offense. Last week they played against the Chargers team, and Tua Tagovailoa, I know he hasn't been playing. He didn't start off the season playing, but the past 3 weeks that he's played, he's looked very good. No interceptions for him on the season, 5 touchdowns, and he's doing just enough for this Dolphins team to win. And we see as games, after the first game, second game, third game, we see him. He's being more flashy with the run. He's being able to open up the offense, hit the deep ball. It looks like they've really found a wide receiver in Jakeem Grant Jr., only 5'9", but he lit up the Chargers on Sunday. And Devontae Parker, I know they signed him to a big contract over the offseason, but Jakeem Grant has really filled in that role for the slot receiver with Preston Williams out. And then you bring in, you bring in Matt Breida and Jordan Howard over the offseason, but it looks like Salvon Ahmed is going to be your, running back for the rest of the season. And he looked great against the Chargers. And now you're playing a Broncos team, which has given up 30 points in the past 4 games. I'm looking for this Miami offense to just go ham. Another great game for them, giving them a nice, bringing them closer and closer to the number 1 seed in the AFC East.
Yeah, and the other side of the ball, pretty disappointing season for Drew Lock so far. 7 touchdowns, 10 interceptions on the season, and a game against the Falcons last week where really, that's the defense, that's the team you really want to take advantage of. Or 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, and you just don't get it done in that game. But the things I do like that could be advantageous for this Broncos team is just their defense, which has been playing, like you said, it hasn't been playing great. But this game is in Denver. That's why the spread is only 3.5, because it's just a different animal. The weather in this game, I am not sure. 52 degrees, so it's not going to be terrible. But, Denver weather in November is never a good thing for any NFL team. So I'm starting to like the Broncos in this matchup. I like the running game they got going on over there. Melvin Gordon coming on recently. And if Tua can make some mistakes, which, he hasn't made really any big mistakes yet, 3-0, they're starting to feel a rhythm. But I think this is the game Miami comes falling down to earth. But it's going to propel them forward even further because they're going to look back at this game. And so give me the Denver with a sneaky upset.
No, this is just ridiculous. I know I picked the Texans in the last one, but you are picking the Denver Broncos who lost to the Atlanta Falcons. So,
crazy.
I don't know what to say right now. This is a gimme. I picked the Texans in the last one, so this is my safe spot right here.
This is your lock of the week?
No, it's not my lock of the week. This is just, my little ace in my back pocket when the Washington football team inevitably loses once again this week. But give me the Dolphins this one. Their defense has been playing crazy. Tua Tagovailoa, like you're saying, he's getting a rhythm built he's getting some rapport with the receivers. Their running back looks like they've really found their guy. So give me the Dolphins in this one. Broncos give up another 30 points once again. Give me the Dolphins 30, Broncos 17.
Tim Patrick has an absolute outstanding showing. Him and Jerry Jeudy get it done against Xavier Howard and Byron Jones. And they just, it's going to be a close game in the fourth quarter. They're not able to stop Drew Lock. And a costly Tua turnover is going to cost the Dolphins this game. They're not going to be out of the playoff race, but it's going to look dire after this one. Give me the Broncos in an absolute game of the year candidate. 21-20, last-second field goal by Brandon McManus in the wind in Denver Stadium gets them the victory for the week.
All right, let's move on to another game in the 3 o'clock schedule. We have the 0-9 Jets playing the 2-7 Chargers at SoFi Stadium. The Chargers in this one, -9.5. Lewis, why don't you go ahead and start us off with this one?
I guess Justin Herbert got a haircut. Look, here's my thing. The Jets clearly have a goal for this season, and it's to not win as many games as they can. Now, they're looking in that rearview mirror. They have to make sure they don't lose to a team or they don't beat a team that's better than the Colts because, strength of record and all of this, the Jaguars need to have the worst record in the NFL. So this is a team you can absolutely not afford to beat. You cannot beat the Chargers. They're 2-7, but this is a game for Justin Herbert. One of those, you've had a really rough stretch recently against some good teams, and you just haven't been able to get that win that has been eluding you for so long. This is the game you come out against a bad team. I feel like the Chargers, they handled their business against the Jaguars a few weeks ago, and they're going to handle their business against the Jets. Advance to 3-7 now. They're not going to be a playoff team, but this is still one of the more talented teams in the NFL, and I think Joe Flacco will be starting this week again. It's just going to be a lot more nonsense for the New York Jets.
Yep, and then on the other side of the ball, maybe some hope for this Jets team. I mean, they kept their games close with the Patriots and the Buffalo Bills, the past couple of weeks. So if they can, try to get some turnovers with the Chargers, they haven't been able to close games. So maybe they might have just a little bit of a chance to win this game, but not really. I mean, this is a perfect game for my boy Justin Herbert. Go out there, throw for 400 yards, throw for 500, or throw for 5 touchdowns, and really, put yourself at the top of the Rookie of the Year conversation. So give me the Chargers in this one. I think it's going to be 30-14.
Too bad Austin Eckler cannot come back to this game. It would certainly help me and it would just help me in this situation. But he will be back soon, Chargers fans. So keep up hope along with me to save him for your fantasy playoffs coming up. But besides that, yeah, I'm going to give my final score. I'm going to go 30-13. How about that?
Okay, there you go.
One last point. But now we're going to move on to another game for the 3 o'clock slate. And I believe this will be it won't be the final one. We have the Green Bay Packers traveling to Indianapolis to play the Indianapolis Colts. Colts favored by 1.5 over the current NFC, the top seed in the NFC. Kind of shows you about the state of the AFC and the NFC at the moment. But my thing in this game is, can Phillip Rivers play like he did against the Titans on Thursday Night Football? If he can, the Colts win this game. No doubt in my mind. Their defense is so good this season. They're bend but don't break, which I think Aaron Rodgers had problems against those types of defenses his whole career, that they don't bite on a lot of his pump fakes. They're well disciplined. They'll give him all the underneath stuff, but take away Devontae Adams, take away those bombs to Marquez Valdes-Scantling and all those receivers down the field, and make Aaron Rodgers go the length of the field and just really get to him, get pressures on him. And this is the perfect defense to do that. Darius Leonard's been an absolute beast this season. Dark horse for Defensive Player of the Year, in my opinion. He just doesn't have the gaudy stats of a Aaron Donald or a Myles Garrett or J.C. Jackson, in my opinion, to really be a front runner for it. But in terms of impact, he is so valuable for this Colts defensive unit to elevate them to the best team in the AFC South. So if you can force Aaron Rodgers to play the long game, go on the long drives, don't give up the cheap, easy touchdowns, stop Aaron Jones, this could be a very tough game for Aaron Rodgers and the Packers.
Yeah, and then you flip it on over to the other side of the ball. We saw what this Colts offense was able to do against the Titans defense, which isn't very good. And this Packers team, we've seen Dalvin Cook run all over them. We've seen, Ronald Jones run all over them, and Leonard Fournette. So, I mean, if you can get Jordan Wilkins, if you can get Nyheim Hines, who's been playing great, if you get Jonathan Taylor, mix in some of that zone run with that great offensive line that you have, and keep Aaron Rodgers off the field. But just like you were saying, the Colts very well could win this game. But my issue for this game is that for the Colts, the Packers have lost 2 games this season. After both those games, Aaron Rodgers has a combined 8 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and 140.9 quarterback rating. So, I mean, Aaron Rodgers is going to come into this game, and he is not going to be happy, especially how that team performed last week against the Jacksonville Jaguars. So I'm just going to have to take the better quarterback in this one. Give me the Packers. I think it's going to be a tight game, but Packers 28, Colts 27.
I'm going to have to disagree with you, Laraib. I think the more physical team offensively and defensively in terms of the offensive line of the Colts. I think Jonathan Taylor really gets his stuff together and has an outstanding game, along with Naheem Hines, who has found his way into the end zone a few times the past few weeks. They're going to bully the defensive line of this Green Bay Packers with the just talent they have on that offensive front. And this is the type of team that the Packers have trouble with, just the strength of both lines of scrimmage, not being able to win on either side, and it will hurt them in the end. My biggest concern is Phillip Rivers having to win this game, but I don't think he'll be put in a position to do so. It's going to be a long, drawn-out game for the Packers, making them go on these long drives, which I think the Colts are better suited to win a game in that type of fashion. So give me the Colts in this matchup. I'm going to go 28-23. Indianapolis gets it done at home to advance to 7-3.
Oh, man. I mean, the rivers, sometimes they're dry and sometimes they're flowing. They're definitely going to be dry in this one.
I'm going to regret it.
And you're going to regret this one just like you're going to regret picking the Broncos. But moving on to the final game, most likely America's game of the week for no reason at all. The 2-7 Dallas Cowboys playing the 4-5 Minnesota Vikings. Cowboys coming off their bye week. Vikings coming off a great win against the Bears on Monday Night Football. Kirk Cousins picks up his first Monday Night Football win, but the Vikings this one -7. And, let's start off with the Vikings. They played a great Bears defense last week, and they were still able to put up, 2 touchdowns by Adam Thielen. Dalvin Cook was held in check for most part of that game. And this week, it's not going to be as difficult at all. I know one thing to note, this Cowboys defense the past couple weeks has been stepping up. A lot of people are not giving their credit. Trayvon Diggs, the rookie cornerback, he picked off Carson Wentz 2 times whenever they played. That doesn't mean much. Carson Wentz, a turnover machine. But, that defense, it's really been the highlight of that team ever since Dak Prescott went down with an injury. And, for the Vikings, they don't want to come into this game thinking, oh, well, we played the Bears last week, so this Cowboys defense is going to be a hell of a lot worse. The Cowboys coming off a bye, they're going to be energized, going to be fired up to play a Vikings team. But that being said, Kirk Cousins, he had an all right game, and I think he can continue that once again against against the Cowboys.
I've been more and more impressed with this Vikings offense the past few weeks and how, the beginning of the season, it was just all passing and they were getting blown out of games. Kirk Cousins was turning the ball over multiple times, and then it transitioned into all right, Dalvin Cook, bring us home. You are our offense. You will get it done. And that's a pretty successful way for this team to win games. But recently you've seen Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen really come together and put up some impressive games in that receiving core to help Kirk Cousins out, especially down the field. So, no, I think that there's a chance they take this game lightly. But I just don't think there's any way the Cowboys can stop this rushing attack with Dalvin Cook. It's going to be so versatile, so potent. And then, Justin Jefferson has been abusing cornerbacks this year. So I just don't see a way this defense can stop them. And on the other hand, the starting quarterback of the Cowboys is still in question.
It will be Andy Dalton.
Okay, it will be? Okay. Andy Dalton will be the starter. We'll see what happens in that sense. He was impressive in his comeback win against the Giants, but ever since then, prior to him getting a concussion, he hasn't looked that great. So we'll see what type of connection he has with these receivers who, Amari Cooper has not been playing well this season whatsoever post Dak Prescott injury. So we'll see if he can get back on track, but I'm going to give the Vikings the edge in this game. Tough one to predict due to the inconsistency at quarterback this year for the Dallas Cowboys. But I like my pick with the Vikings to move up to 5-5 after such a horrible start to the season.
Yeah. Quick thing to note, the Cowboys, like I said, coming off a bye, but they get Andy Dalton back. Chidobe Awuzie will be back. Zach Martin, I believe he will be playing in this game. And, the Cowboys, just before the bye week, who they played? They played the Pittsburgh Steelers. And they won that game. They almost won that game if it weren't for the questionable officiating. So, this Cowboys team, this is going to be a tough game to predict. But, there's too many inconsistencies on the offense. Is Andy Dalton going to be able to play good? Ezekiel Elliott, does he still have the motivation to, he's been struggling the past couple of weeks. So, with all that, I'm picking the Dallas Cowboys in this one. Kirk Cousins, he's bound for a terrible game. I know Dalvin Cook, he might go off in this one, but Andy Dalton, the red rifle, he comes out, he lights it up. Ezekiel Elliott, mark my words, 100 yards and at least a touchdown in this one. Give me the Cowboys, 28, Vikings, 21.
Wow, and they win by a touchdown. Okay. Yeah, I don't see that happening. I understand Kirk Cousins just came off a huge Monday night win, the first of his career, but I just don't see this defense being able to stop this rejuvenated offense. And, in terms of the Vikings defense, they've been vastly improved. The linebacker play has been very good for them so far this season. And if Andy Dalton puts the ball in positions, I don't know how you're making this pick.
The red
I think
rifle,
the Broncos
he's
pick
got
is a
it. He's
little
got
bit
it in this
better.
one.
Yeah, the red rifle is going to get absolutely shut down in this game. So give me the Vikings winning this one. I'm going to go 21-13. Just not much offense, but Dalvin Cook will not be stopped in this matchup.
Okay, that will conclude the 3 o'clock slate of games. Let's move on to the Sunday night game. The 8-1 Kansas City Chiefs facing the 6-3 playoff hopefuls in the Las Vegas Raiders. Kansas City in this game, -8. So let me start off with this Kansas City Chiefs team coming off a bye last week. And, quick thing to note, Andy Reid is 18-3 following a bye week. And another thing to note is the Chiefs' only loss this season was against the Las Vegas Raiders, where they gave up 40 points on defense. Patrick Mahomes, we saw him on the sideline. He was really mad at that defense, just giving up points after points to this Raiders team. So this is going to be a revenge game for the Chiefs. And I think, they're going to come out firing on all cylinders, especially off that bye week, get a lot of players rested up, get their offense, get them some time off. And then they're going against a Raiders defense, which we've seen has been exposed a couple times this year. But that being said, the Kansas City Chiefs, their offense, Patrick Mahomes, probably the MVP frontrunner right now. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Travis Kelce, the best tight end in football, along with Tyreek Hill. I think that offense is just going to be too much for the Raiders to handle in this one.
Yeah, I agree with you, Laraib. I mean, there was a story that came out, and I don't know if you heard about this, but following the win at Kansas City for the Raiders, when they beat the Chiefs earlier in the season, they did a little victory lap with the bus after the game. They did a whole circle around Arrowhead. And I don't know if you know this, but Arrowhead is not in Kansas City. It's in a suburb outside of Kansas City. Where the only two things there is like a rundown Arby's and a motor oil outside. So there's not much to be looking at. So clearly they were doing it. They were circling around saying, wow. John Gruden was like, you know what? Remember this game, guys, because this is the last time we're beating the Chiefs this decade at Arrowhead. So Andy Reid with a whole week off to game plan. Patrick Mahomes, he threw an interception in that game. I don't see that happening in this one. And this game will be over in the third quarter. The Chiefs are going to put the Raiders in their place for my lock of the week. I'm going to say it now. This is an absolute gimme on Sunday night. Patrick Mahomes will not disappoint. Now, I've liked a lot what the Raiders have done recently, but they're just running into a stone wall right here. And the Chiefs aren't going to be moonwalking through this game or sleepwalking, excuse me. They're going to be entirely focused coming off a bye to kick the Raiders' butts. And I think they will with a score of 34-17, all Chiefs in the Red Kingdom.
Well, when we first talked about this game early on in the season, what did we say? We said Derek Carr, if they were to win this game, he needs to light it up down the field and for Josh Jacobs to have a great game. And that's what he did in that one, but I think he's going to have a hard time in this one. Tyrann Mathieu, L'Jarius Sneed, rookie, he's been playing good. So I think they're going to be tightened up in this one, ready to go, especially off the bye week. The Raiders, the only hope once again is going to be that deep ball from Derek Carr and that run game with Josh Jacobs. But Patrick Mahomes, he's not going to let this one slip away from him and create the mental errors that he did in the last one. So give me the Chiefs in this one. I'm going to go a little bit closer than you just because it's divisional. Both teams fired up after the loss and the win last time. So give me the Chiefs in this one. 34, Raiders 24.
All right, good points all around. Now we're going to move on to our last game of the Week 11 slate. We're going to the Monday night game. The Los Angeles Rams traveling to Tampa to face the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is going to be a difficult game for the Rams offense in particular. They're facing a very stout defensive front in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who really stymied the offensive attack for the Panthers last week. It was a close game in the first half, but once they shut down that running game, it was basically over for the Panthers in that matchup. And I think that's what the game plan is against the Rams. No, I don't think this Buccaneers defense is as good as people thought it was earlier in the season following the Saints game on Sunday night, but it's still good enough to really stop the running game, which I think they will be able to do in this matchup to really, get to Malcolm Brown, Darrell Henderson, Cam Akers, limit the running game in every capacity, and get pressure with your front four on Jared Goff. The offensive line has been playing a lot better for the Rams, but I just don't think they're going to have enough firepower to overcome the pressure for Jared Goff. He needs to be able to get the ball out quick into his receivers, who have really not produced too much, in the past few weeks. So I like the Buccaneers to have the advantage in this matchup.
Yeah, and then on the other side of the ball, we saw Tom Brady last week just have another one of those Tom Brady type of performances. But I think this week he's definitely going to have his hands full with the Rams defense that has been playing out of its mind. I believe they have the second best defense in the NFL concerning yards per game, and they have the third best passing defense in the NFL. So, I mean, Tom Brady, I think more of this game is going to be on Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette, because we saw DK Metcalf last week get shut down by Jalen Ramsey, and Darius Williams. He had a great game against Russell Wilson, 2 interceptions on him last week. And for Tom Brady, it's going to be all about him just taking what the defense gives you. And then on the defense side of the Rams, they're a lot better than the Seahawks were, and the Seahawks were able to, they get pressure. The thing about Jared Goff is if you get a hand in his face, he will cause turnovers, or it will cause turnovers and give you great field position. We saw Jamal Adams last week get a fumble on Jared Goff, and gave the Seahawks great field position last week. And I expect more of the same again this week. We know what this Buccaneers front seven is with JPP and Ndamukong Suh and Devin White, Levante David. We know exactly who they are. So the only cause of concern for this defense is the deep ball from Jared Goff to someone like Robert Woods or Cooper Kupp. Josh Reynolds had a great game last week against the Seahawks, but in this one, I definitely have to give the edge to the Buccaneers, like you're saying, just because I like Tom Brady. Even though Tom Brady has a tough matchup, I think it's not going to be as tough as what Jared Goff is going to be facing all night. So give me the Buccaneers in this one. Buccaneers at home. So give me them. I think it's going to be a little bit low scoring, tight game. Give me Buccaneers 24, Rams 21.
I agree with all the points you just made. I mean, it's going to be a very tough matchup for this Rams defense against the Buccaneers offense. Who breaks first? The turnovers are going to be huge, but I agree with you. I like the Buccaneers in this matchup for all the reasons we listed. So give me the Buccaneers to win this game 27-23.
Okay, so that will wrap up all our predictions for Week 11 in the NFL. But before we go, we have to do our lock and upsets of the week, unlike we did last week. So Lewis was supposed to go first last week, so this is my turn to go first this week. So for my lock of the week, I will go with the 9-0 Pittsburgh Steelers going up against the Jaguars. Steelers minus 10.5 in this game. I mean, I said this was a trap game for them, but Mike Tomlin, he's not going to let this game slip out of his hands.
Yeah, and my lock of the week will be the Kansas City Chiefs taking care of business against the Raiders, coming off a bye week, staying focused. This is their only loss in the season. I know they want to make it right. This is a prideful team, prideful organization, and they will get the win on Sunday night against the Raiders. And for my first upset, I will be taking the Denver Broncos at home against the Miami Dolphins. Miami is going on a super hot streak right now, going into the cold north of Denver, or a place where they're not familiar playing. And I just think they're going to have a goose egg in this game. I like Drew Lock, finishing this game in the fourth quarter. Tua is going to have his first loss, but it won't be doomed because I think they're going to bounce back tremendously from it.
And my upset of the week, I was contemplating the Falcons over the Saints, especially with Jameis Winston at the helm, but
you're not going to do Cowboys. That's the team you picked.
But, man, do I pick the Titans or do I pick the Falcons? Give me the Tennessee Titans in this one. I think the ground and pound game with Derrick Henry is going to be too much for that Ravens defense to handle. once again, we saw Damian Harris run all over them. So if Damian Harris can, why can't Derrick Henry? And that's exactly what they're going to do. Ravens fall to 6-4. Meanwhile, the Titans will go to 7-3.
All right, so that will conclude this episode of the Lewis and Laraib podcast. Good things to know. We are starting to get into NBA time, so make sure you are staying focused for our NBA fans out there. We'll get you content pretty soon regarding that. And then for the rest of our week, the weeks prior, you can see all of our podcasts on the channel, and the links to our Twitter and Instagram will be in the bio, where we keep you updated on whenever we post, so you can stay into the time. So that will conclude this episode. Laraib, any closing remarks?
If you send me a picture of Ezekiel Elliott holding the Super Bowl trophy, I will Venmo you $5.
And if I can get a picture of Drew Lock beating Tua Tagovailoa in any sense, just Drew Lock and Tua in the same picture, but Drew looks like the better person, $5 for you in your pocket. But that will conclude this episode of the Lewis and Laraib podcast. Thank you for staying if you made it this far, and leave a like and subscribe if you haven't. But that will be it for us, and peace out.
See y'all.